Hello listeners, my name is Charles Scott again, and we are here this beautiful day. The name of the program is called Can We Talk? I'm here with
Charles Scott Jr. How you guys doing today? As you know, we do normally. We have a weekly episode here to educate the public and to see how we can help.
And if you haven't tuned in before, the program is informative. We talk about real estate, we talk about the economy. We give you sort of an up-to-date viewpoint as to what's happening out there in the real estate market and how the economy affects you.
Yes.
There's been some changes, as everything happens. Every week there's changes. So
every day, but hey, we're here to help. We
try to keep you up to date.
We're up to date. We look at the news every day. We're living it. You know, we're here in Fairfield County and beyond.
Being in Fairfield County, we get to give you a first-hand view as to the migrations of people from state to state. What's happening in the state of Connecticut. We're here in the state of Connecticut, but because of our proximity to New York City, this is where millions and millions of people live, and some of the highest priced real estate in the entire country. And then Connecticut is next door, where the properties are a little bit more affordable and more residential.
Yes.
So we see the people coming in from Manhattan, New York, coming into the state of Connecticut. It's slowed down some since the pandemic, but still things are going along at a fairly brisk pace, I would say.
It's still pretty steady, because what they see is they come to Connecticut. Maybe they've never been to Connecticut. They've been in New York their whole lives, and they say, wow, I'm a little bit further from work, but there's a nice, Metro North there. Jump right on the train. I can still get to work maybe 20 minutes later, but hey, look what I'm paying for rent. Look what I'm paying for my mortgage. Look what I'm getting for that same amount versus New York. Maybe they don't have a backyard. Maybe they don't have a front yard. Maybe you're on the 12th floor, 13th floor. Here they can be on the second floor, have a backyard, have parking. So there are some advantages the New Yorkers are seeing with Connecticut.
One of the things that I noticed to slow down a little, I remember for a while there, all of the people coming in, there were so many license plates. New York, everywhere you turn around.
License plates.
So I guess a lot of those people have transferred their plates.
They become Connecticut citizens.
They're Connecticut citizens. Now we see it on the highways.
Oh yeah, definitely.
On the highways going into New York, and also coming out of New York. I know we were in Greenwich the other day, and you got to time it just right.
Oh yes.
If you're going into New York or early in the mornings, because we had an early morning meeting that was in Stamford.
That was in Stamford last week.
Last week, and you get hit with the traffic going, and you get hit with the traffic coming out. So the other thing you want to pace yourself for is the majority of the traffic coming out of New York is on a Friday night.
Oh yeah.
Because all the people are getting out of New York on Fridays. They're heading for Vermont, Maine, vacation spots, Cape Cod, the weekend. They all got to come through Connecticut.
Yes.
And so then it slows down. On a Sunday night, it's just the opposite.
Oh yeah, everybody going in.
Everybody's going back to New York City, going back in to get ready for work. So, living in Connecticut for so long, we know how to gauge the traffic in the mornings and the evenings and the afternoons. There is talk of converting more trains for transit going from the Maine all the way into New York, a corridor, and then going into the side cities like Waterbury. They're looking to do a lot of improvements and upgrades.
That would be great. Like the congestion on the highway would be lessened with that.
There's been a lot of talk. See, one of the things in the state of Connecticut, most of the railroads are for passenger use.
Yes.
In other states, you have the rail system where they use it for transporting cattle, goods, supplies, and merchandise.
Exactly.
In Connecticut, the railways are for passenger use, and they are talking about adding another rail line or another rail for the industrial use. That way you'll eliminate a lot of the traffic on Interstate 95.
Yes.
Because that's a main road that comes all the way up and down the East Coast. And there's a lot of tractor trailers. One of the things that we did last week, for example, we were on 95, we had a lot of traffic and everything, so I said,
shortcut.
Let's get on
the Merritt
Parkway. the Merritt Parkway does not allow commercial vehicles.
Exactly. Some people may not notice that, and they probably are looking at our episode and say, yeah, you're right. Never seen any really big trucks there. No tractor trailers, no big oil tanker, stuff like that.
So if you're listening to us and if you're coming into Connecticut or going out of Connecticut, next time take the Merritt Parkway. And the Merritt Parkway sort of runs parallel to Interstate 95, but they do not allow a lot of commercial use. So you avoid all the tractor trailers and you avoid all of the congestion and so it makes it a lot easier. Plus it's a nice scenic route where you can go through Greenwich and Westport, Easton, and it's a nice comfortable ride. So we gave you a tip there to save
somebody 3 hours in the commute.
save you some times on the commute.
Exactly.
Now today we're going to talk a little bit about what has happened in the last a month or so, or
what
the last couple of weeks. You know, we had talked previously. We had hit on if you're looking to buy a house in the state and you're a Connecticut resident, there's a program called the Time to Own.
Time to Own.
This is free money to help you buy a house.
Yes.
Free money, F-R-E-E-E, free.
It really is free. We have experience. We've had some closings with this program, and I would say we've learned how it works. And if you have any questions, give us a call. Our number's right down there. But yeah, Time to Own is a real program. It's here in Connecticut. It's been out since I would say last August. And I mean, it's funded by the state. I mean, there's been times it's run out of money, but at this point, it does have funds and it's ready to be used.
That particular program also is for Connecticut residents.
Yes.
And
or those that moved in Connecticut, what, 3 years, I believe it was?
Right. And there's other programs that we had talked about. These other programs that the banks sponsor. The banks sponsor programs to help you with your down payment and to help you with your closing costs. As you know, when you're buying a house, you have a down payment that you put down and closing costs, which is your lawyer, your appraisal, your inspection.
Exactly.
So there's other fees, but there's also there's ways of getting assistance with all of those fees also. So you know, you can give us a call. You know, in the intro, I was just giving you a little bit about us. We're Tri-State Realty.
Yes.
Charles Scott Jr. is a broker, and I am also a broker. And we've been around for 38 years, so we just didn't start, you know, we've been around the block, as they say. We've experienced some of, you know, all types of real estate transactions, whether it's commercial, residential, whatever it is.
Yeah,
we can give you advice.
Not to interrupt you, but according to your track record, I would say right now the buying is still good. Interest rates are real low compared to when the company was started.
Oh yeah.
16%, 17% back in the 80s.
Interest rates are still good. And interest rates right now like 6.5%. So the interest rate is good. And like people always ask me, what do I think of the interest rate? The other thing I tell people is it all depends on what your intentions are. I mean, if you're going to be buying a house and you don't plan on staying there that long, like the average person stays in a house 5 years.
Yes, very true.
That might be shocking to everyone out there, but the average person stays in the same house 5 years.
5 years.
They own a house, but they may buy a house and then it gets too small or they fix it up. Then they may flip it and sell it, and then they buy another house.
Exactly.
So, or they may get relocated from one part of the country to the other part of the country. So they don't stay in a house for 15, 10, 20 years. I'm actually, can almost say some people stay in a house, you know, less time than some renters stay in apartments.
I will say that. I mean, you have people who have rented the same apartment. I talk to some people every day. 2002, 2003. I mean, that was 20 years ago. And they're still paying what I'll call deflated rent. It's not market rate. And when they have to move, they realize, wow, apartments are very expensive. I should own a home by now compared to what I'm paying.
A lot of people right now are in shock when they get ready to move. Now, you know, if you know, we were going to concentrate this more on sales, but if you're a renter out there, you know, start looking into the possibility of buying.
Yes.
Because when you get out there and you start, you know, looking for a house, and you know, the biggest motivator in buying a house is not you sitting out there on the couch, not you watching TV. It's your landlord, believe it
Oh,
or
there you
not,
go.
because the landlord, most of the people that come to us and we say, why are you looking for a house? The landlord sold the house.
There we go.
That is the biggest motivator that we see right now, motivating people to buy.
Exactly.
Because the landlord sold the house. So it's like they sat down and you get comfortable or you don't get motivated, and now the landlord's selling the house. I spoke to a lady just this past week. She called up, she was looking for a rental. And I asked her, I said, so what happened in the past? She says, I've been here for over 15 years.
Yep.
And new landlords, bought the building. And, I had to go to court. And I said, that sends off red bells. And I'm thinking, you went to court. You do not want to go to court, because now that gets on your record.
Yep.
So I said to her, I says, whoa, that's not good. I said, because now it's hard to find an apartment if you're being evicted.
Yep.
And she said the deal that they made was that and I said, so what happened when you went to court? She said, the judge said I have to move. And, I sort of felt like that was kind of cold and impersonal.
Yeah.
But, it goes to show, because I was wondering myself, what is how are the courts, adapting to this? Are they, have any compassion for the people? Maybe they let them stay there for a little longer. But, the judge has to go by the law.
Exactly.
The law is the law. The judge, he lets his feelings get in, or she lets her feelings get in a little bit. And I said, so what happened? She went to court, and the judge gave her 60 days to move. And the landlord, she said, I pay my rent all the time. So there's one way that they have it, and it's called lapse of time.
Yep, lapse of time.
At the lapse of time, that means if the landlord gives you notices to move out and you're still there, he can go back into court and he can request that you move, and the judge has to say, by law, you have a certain amount of time to move. The landlord gives you the 30 days notice, and in that particular case, the landlord told her he wanted to renovate the building. And he wanted to, because a lot of these buildings that these people live in, they haven't been renovated in 25, 30 years.
Exactly.
So the new landlord wants to start all over. He wants to come in, new floors, new walls. Unlike what a lot of people, put out there, a lot of slum landlords, and there are some, I agree, but the majority of the landlords, when they come in, they want to remodel the property.
But how about this? What if the landlord bought the property using what we call FHA loan, where it has to be owner occupied? They may need the first floor. So at that point, the judge is going to see that also.
Yeah, but like I was saying, most landlords do come in and fix up their properties. The reason why is because then they can get a lot more money. Because if they're charging a rent of $1,200 a month, and if they know they can fix it all up and make it look nice, and they can get $1,700 a month, doesn't take too much math to figure out.
They'll fix it up.
I'm getting $500 a month more by fixing up the apartment. So they come in and they fix it up, and then they boost the rent. Up to $1,600, $1,700, $2,000, $2,000.
Little granite countertop or the new floors, hey, that'll pay for itself in 3 months.
Exactly. So what happens is now the landlords come in and they start making the improvements. But you can be, on time with your rent.
Yes.
And the landlord can still take you to court.
Oh, yeah.
And in her particular case, like I said, the judge gave her 2 months to move out.
Exactly.
Now, she made a deal where they would not put it down as an eviction if she moved out within a certain amount of time. So that's why she was trying to move without the actual landlord going back into court and filing it as an eviction on her record. So if you're out there, you're sitting on the couch and you're complacent and you're thinking about, one day I'm going to buy a house, don't wait until the landlord forces you out.
Exactly.
And it's always the nice landlords that are the ones that are going to force you out. And the reason being, the nice landlords, if you have a landlord and you say, oh, my landlord is the nicest landlord in the world, he's a real good guy, you know why that is? Usually it's because he's charging you a low rent.
Got that right.
Now, that could be a problem. And you're saying, how could charging me a low rent be a problem? Because that's the landlord who's going to say, or have a conversation with the landlord across the street, and the landlord across the street is going to be saying, oh, I'm getting $1,700 a month. What are you getting? $900? You're crazy.
Exactly.
And so now your nice landlord is going to come to you or sit down with his wife and say, you know, we're only getting $900. The guy across the street is getting $1,700. And, you know, I hate putting the tenants out. They've been so good to us. They've been loyal, and I don't know how to tell them.
Hey.
And the wife says, well, you know what? Why don't we just sell the
There
house?
we go. I was going to say, some people don't like confrontation, especially, I mean, a lot of landlords have family members as tenants. You got your aunt, you got your uncle on the second floor. I mean, they don't know your finances. You can say, hey, I can't manage this building anymore. I need to sell it. Their way, that way you're kind of not the bad guys. They have to sell the building. Let the new landlord be the guy that raises your rent.
Right, and I find that most landlords, rather than confronting the tenants and going up on the rent, they just say, I'm selling the house. That way, you know, and you know, we look at it, and I've been doing this for a long time, and I hate to say it, in most cases, the landlord is selling the house because he wants to get rid of his own relatives.
Oh, yes.
In most cases, because he's probably got the uncle living there, he's got the nephew living there, he's got the sister-in-law, the
Maybe
wife's
the rent's
sister,
not up to date.
and everything.
In
I
just a
remember
couple months.
multifamily sold about 4 years ago, and I said, well, you know, what about the tenants? What are you going to do with the tenants? And I said, how hard is it going to be to get upstairs to see the apartment? No, that's not no problem. That's my wife's sister's on the 3rd floor, and I got my niece on the 2nd floor.
Yep.
And I said, so, okay, so I said, what's happening with them? He says, that's why I'm selling the house.
Exactly.
I said, he whispered, that's why I'm selling the house. He said, and the wife said, I want some peace and quiet. You don't know what it's like having a sister upstairs coming down,
The niece,
talking all the time. The niece, she's upstairs all the time. The kids upstairs. He said, I want a nice little one-family house and some peace and quiet.
Wow.
So I'm selling the house. So now, imagine when the people are coming and looking at the houses, and the new landlord buys the house.
Oh, yes.
New landlord, he doesn't care about the niece, he don't care about the sister on the 3rd floor and all that and everything.
He's going to say, you're paying this much? Oh, no.
Oh, no.
We got to increase this.
We got to, and the landlord, and the other thing too, here's a warning when you know the landlord's getting ready to sell the house. When he says, oh, we don't have to renew the lease, we can do it month to month.
Oh, yes, yes. If you have a landlord that, for the last, let's say you've been there for 15 years, let's say it's March 1st, he's there with the new lease, maybe the rent's gone up 10%, maybe it stayed the same. If you, let's say randomly one year he doesn't do it, you know something's starting to happen. If he's been on time the last 15 years, maybe he's saying, okay, because like we say, it's better to sell a house without, I'll say, leases in place, because now the new landlord can move in and increase the rent. I mean, that's something we should touch on. People don't realize when a building is sold, let's say you're in a 3-family house and you have a lease in place.
I know where you're going with that one.
That has to be honored. Be careful. Some landlords will be saying, oh, that was with your other landlord. I'm the new landlord. Let's sign a new lease, increase the rent. Remember, if you have a lease that's for, let's say, the 2025 and the new landlord comes in 2024, he has to honor that by law.
That's right. He cannot go up, the new landlord cannot go up on the rent as long as you have a lease. And that lease states the amount in there.
Exactly.
Now, and it's got to have a term period in there from 1 year to the next
Exactly.
year. Now, if you do have a lease, and a lot of times people get a lease when they first move into an apartment, and then they from then on they just pay their landlord, pay the landlord. The landlord does not give you a new lease. Most leases are for 1 year. That means at the end of that year, the lease expires and it converts to what they call an oral lease or a month-to-month. So you still have a lease, the terms are still the same, but it's, instead of it being from 1 year to the next year, it's from 1 month to the next month to the next month. Now, what are the pluses and minuses for that? Well, it means also that you can leave any time by just giving the landlord 30 days notice if you decide to move, and you're not obligated to pay the rest of the rent for that year because it's month to month.
Exactly.
The other side, the negative, is the landlord can actually increase your rent any one of those months.
Exactly.
By giving you 30 days notice, because you're going month to month. If your rent is $1,500 a month, and every month you're paying them $1,500, all of a sudden he comes to you and says in 30 days it's going up to 1,700.
Yeah.
He can do that.
Well, we've seen that happen before. I get calls every day with landlords going up on the rent.
So you got to be careful. You know, that's another segment we should get into, talk about some of the ways and different types of leases that are out there. We're not lawyers. We don't claim to be lawyers.
No.
But in general, you know, we can tell you what the occupancy, some of the rules of the occupancy, some of the things that we've seen inside of a lease as to what the tenant can do and what the landlord can do. And the only thing I advise all landlords, do not have anything in oral. Don't just agree and shake hands.
In writing.
Tenants also have everything in writing. Always put in writing what you can do, what you can't do. Recently, we put together something that we put like the rules of the road for the rights of the tenants.
Oh yes.
Rights of the landlords. You know.
Exactly.
A lot of the landlords have rights. Mm-hmm. But tenants have rights also. And there's things you can do. And a lot of people buying, we get a big rush right now for what?
Multifamilies. I mean,
everybody wants a two-family.
What people may know as house hacking. Oh, you see all over TikTok, YouTube, where you move in one side of the duplex, the other side is rented out. That person is helping you pay the mortgage, if not the entire mortgage. And that's what everybody wants to do. So remember, there's a lot of competition when it comes to multifamily houses.
Sounds good, but in reality, if you're not landlord material, I'd advise you not to buy a two-family.
It's a people business. It's not just collecting checks and fixing pipes.
You know, if you avoided people all your life and you don't want people to get into your business and you don't want to get into their business and you don't like gossip and you don't like confronting people or negotiating with people and setting rules and guidelines, that's what a landlord's job is. So if you've had to not have to deal with that all your life and now you want to buy a two-family house and you're thrust right into it, you know, when your wife is saying, oh, they're making a lot of noise upstairs, go upstairs and talk to the tenant. And you look at her and she looks at you. Well, you don't just go up there and bang, 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 bang. Shut that noise down. Oh, now you started World War III.
Unless, remember, that lease protects you. Maybe in your lease you do have it saying after 11 o'clock, no loud noise, but few landlords have that to protect themselves. So remember, they're renting from you as their space.
Remember this also. You have in the lease, no loud noise after 11 o'clock. You go upstairs, you knock on the door. Who considers what loud noise?
Yeah, exactly.
They're looking at you, what loud noise? Now, remember, they got the kids upstairs running around on the floor. They still haven't been to bed. You're downstairs looking up, listening to them because they're on top of your head. So they don't consider it loud noise.
Yeah, it's just like kids being kids.
Just kids. So you have to, as a landlord, accept certain things.
Oh, yes.
You have to accept that, number one, if you are going to own a two-family house, it comes with responsibilities and obligations, and there's going to be things that you are going to have to put up with.
Oh, yes.
And if you say, I don't have to put up with that, then you're going to have problems because, yes, you don't have to put up with a lot of noise, but who determines what is a lot of noise?
Yes.
A lot of noise to you may be nothing to another tenant living downstairs. Suppose you don't live in the two-family house and there's two tenants that live there. One lives on the first floor, one lives on the second floor, and they both have children. Well, when you say to them, you hear that noise, they say, what noise? I don't hear anything. You hear anything? You hear anything? We don't hear nothing. Because they're used to it, and that's the way they live, and they get along, and they have no problems whatsoever. You know, so they've all lived together happily ever after, no problems whatsoever. Now you have lived in that environment with the tenant upstairs. You buy that two-family house. Now you want to go in peace and quiet and collect the rent. Yep. Now you're like, what's all that noise up there? I don't have to put up with this. I'm the landlord.
Exactly.
Well, guess what? In some cases, you have to put up with that because you're charging them money and you're giving them a space, but you're charging them. It ain't free.
Exactly.
It's not free.
Very true.
So they expect certain things.
I was going to touch on something else, and we'll have a segment on this, you know, landlord rights, tenants' rights, but just the things that, as a landlord, you would never think of. For example, I know a story, a landlord told the person, please do not flush the wipes down the drain. Wipes do not break up like toilet paper. The person said, I'm not using wipes, I swear. let's say 3 months later, the pipe got stuck again. The plumber looks in there, more wipes. So at that point, the person admitted, yeah, my son likes the wipes. But what am I supposed to do? You're not supposed to flush them. So remember, even though the landlord told them twice and spent $3,000, it still happened. That's money out of your profit, out of your budget.
And how did the landlord find out? You know why? Because when the landlord, I remember that situation, called the Roto-Rooter man, and they went and they put the snake down there and they pulled everything up. Here's all these
the
wipes.
They don't break up like paper.
They don't dissolve like tissue, like toilet paper.
Exactly.
And then she had to do the whole system. She
All
had to
over.
dig up the street.
Thousands of dollars.
Yeah, thousands of dollars. All and the sidewalk, bust up the sidewalk and all of that.
No, you don't see that on TikTok. I had never seen a TikTok about a landlord complaining about that. Those are the real stories.
These are things that happen. So again, we have all these people wanting two-family houses. Remember, a two-family house comes with a responsibility.
A lot of responsibility.
Plus, it's more expensive. You're buying two homes in one. You know, a lot of people expect to buy a two-family. They think it's a word. Oh, instead of a one-family, we'll get a two-family. Well, guess what? Two-family costs twice as much as a one-family.
Twice the sewer bill, twice the water bill.
Twice the expenses.
Twice the expenses.
And guess what? If you buy a two-family house and you have twice the expenses and the tenant does not pay you,
Ooh, don't let that happen.
You're assuming that the tenant's going to pay you on time every single month and that's going to help you pay your mortgage. What if the opposite happens and the tenant does not pay you?
I will see. That's one thing I see the difference between investors who buy a lot of buildings versus a new landlord, which is pretty much expected. They calculate for vacancies. What 3 months out of the year is it vacant? I'll say mom and pop landlord I've met, every time they do the math, it's fully rented the whole year. I'm like, oh, you're a good landlord.
They put
the maximum, don't they?
If you're buying a two-family house, they always write down, this is how much money I'm going to collect every month forever. I'm like, it doesn't work like that.
Forever? You're not going to have any vacancies? What if your tenant loses their job?
What if they don't pay you the rent? And you got expenses, and you got a lawyer fee, and you got to pay the water bill, and you got to pay the sewer bill, and a lot of people say, well, oh, that's okay. I'm going to have my sister or my relative up there. Sometimes that's worse.
Oh, yes, yes.
That's worse. You just moved away from the family so they don't get into your business, and now you move them right back in with you.
And don't let this happen. Let's say 6 months into the year lease, and your property taxes go up. Now you have more expenses, but you can't increase the rent. You're under a lease.
So we're just telling you there's pluses and minuses.
Yes.
Because when sometimes, and we tell you the truth, we put it out there so you know. Some realtors will say, oh, buy a two-family here. You're going to make a lot of money. This is what you want to do. We're just saying, know what you're doing ahead of time. That's why we have satisfied customers.
Yes, definitely. But just in closing, I just want to remind everybody the time to own program is still in effect. Give us a call. We can explain everything to you. Like you said, it's free money.
Free money.
Free
Free
money.
Free. So until next week, tune in. Have your friends tune in. Charles Scott Jr. Till next week, God bless.
Amen.